with Omoworare, and remember that in the month of March, we are talking about complexities of contemporary relationships. If you didn't listen to the previous episodes that I shared, which is the first installment, I did that. I think it was last week Friday. You can go and check, listen to that, watch that, right, and drop your notes, your observations, your comments, and everything. Okay, so this is the second installment. By the way, Pearls and Gemstones Tribe is a network of singles in waiting, and we exist to sort of build a support community for singles in their waiting season so they can interact with each other, share their challenges, and really grow together in that sense. Okay, so this is the second installment, and we are going to be talking about some relationships in the Bible that existed, and we would definitely draw up some lessons from all of that. So if you come into the live stream, please confirm that you can see me and you can hear me loud and clear. You can also drop your questions if you have any. And if you're a single in your waiting season, you can join the Pearls and Gemstones tribe. Go to my handle, Instagram handle, elizabeth.m.omorere. The link in bio has the option to join PAG, that's Pearls and Gemstones tribe. So you can do that quickly. Okay, so let's dive straight in. It's going to be brief and short. Okay, so I have here a couple of relationships that I want to go through briefly. So we have Joseph and Mary, you have Samson and Delilah, Dina and the Shechemites, Judah and his Canaanite wife, Ruth and Boaz, Abigail and Nabal, Deborah and Lapidot. Okay, and then after I've gone through the complexities in these relationships, I'll go through some of the things you can do which will define boundaries for you. Okay, so the first, I'll run through the relationships that were really destructive in that sense before I walk through the other ones had uh great that had great impact, not just on their themselves, the couple, right, but on those that they were sent to, because relationships, marriage in that sense, is for kingdom advancement, right? Okay, so the first is Samson and Delilah. You can get details of this from the book of Judges, Judges chapter 13 and Judges chapter 16. So we know that an angel appeared to Samson's mother and told her that she was going to have a son, gave her instructions on what she should eat during that period of her pregnancy and what they mustn't do after Samson was born. Okay, and we are told that Samson was a Levite. He was, so to speak, separated. Okay, he was not just any kind of person. So he was a Levite, and there were consecrations he was meant to keep. So the first is that they weren't meant to cut his hair, and he wasn't supposed to take wine. Okay, he was supposed to take wine. You weren't supposed to cut his hair. Can't remember the third one now, but you can go through Judges chapter 13. Okay, and so Samson, several several times his parents had told him that he shouldn't mix up with the women in that community, especially the Philistines, but he didn't listen. Okay, and we're told that he had married one other lady, and then some things happened. I think they got separated, and then he started going after Delilah. Now Delilah was a Philistine in that sense because she supported the plans that they had. They wanted to bring down Samson. Samson was never meant to interact with, was never meant to associate with Delilah. He was never meant to associate with Delilah, giving his consecrations, the mandate that God had given him. The spirit and the power of God was upon him, and he was a judge in that sense for Israel, fighting their battles at that time. So, what did Samson do? I think the only thing he did was to go after his lusts and desires, right? and he kept several points in his lifetime. He was destroying he was fighting the Philistines quite alright, but he kept going back to Delilah. He kept going back to Delilah. And at some point the Philistines met her, and there was a an agreement that they wanted to bring Samson down, and she kept pestering him to tell her the source of his power several times. If Samson was thinking through the whole process, several times Samson should have known that this lady was on a mission, but no, he stayed there and he worried her until he later told her the source of his power. And we all understand, we all know what happened. You can read through Judges chapter 13 and chapter 16, like I said, and we understand how we know how Samson ended up. Samson died, even though the Bible recorded that the people he killed at the point of his death was much more than those he killed while he was alive. But at that point in time, he had gone through excruciating pain. His eyes had been pulled out and everything, and he subjected him to, he was under a lot of torture and torment by the Philistines because of the things he had done to them in the past. Now, if he had not been entangled with Delilah, probably his life wouldn't have ended, his story wouldn't have ended that way. So how did he find Delilah? What was he doing with Delilah? Why did he decide to stick with her, even though his parents had warned him and he knew the consecration that he had upon him, right? So why did he decide to stay regardless of all of that? That's the first one. That relationship was never meant to be, right? That relationship was never meant to be. And so it was inappropriate from the get-go. Now, if you're a single, there are certain things you must understand are consecrations for you. If as a child of God, there are places you don't go, there are people you don't interact with, there are people you don't associate with. Are you aware of this, and are you taking steps? Have you created those boundaries to safeguard yourself? And if you don't have a copy of my book, Journey to Enthronement for Singles in Their Waiting Season, please get a copy. It's on my handle, where I share details about, I talked extensively about self-care and boundaries, how to preserve yourself and your life. Okay, because there's a purpose for your life. You're not just a you're a divine extraction. There's a purpose for your life. So there's something God needs you to accomplish for him. And when you decide that you would leave the mandate that God has for you, then your relationships have to be right as well. Okay? So the next is Dina and the Shechemites. Okay, so this can be gotten from Genesis chapter 34, verses 1 to 30. So the Bible records that she went out that day to interact with the women in that community. And it was at that point when she went out, she left her father's house to interact with the women in that community. And it was at that point that she got raped. Even though the man that raped her agreed actually to get married to her, but her brothers were furious because she had been defiled, right? As the only daughter of Jacob, she had been defiled. And so they deceived the people of that land and told them that they were going to give them some things. There was some sort of agreement between them, but they deceived them, and they ended up killing all of them after they had circumcised them. So the point I'm extracting here is, again, association. What was Dina, right, doing with the Shechemites? She should have known better, that she wasn't supposed to associate with them. So associations are powerful. The communities you choose to belong to are extremely powerful. So you have to be mindful. Like I said, like Samson, he should have known that his life had been consecrated from the beginning, so he wasn't meant to live anyhow. Dina should have known this. And it was a very sad story, because they had defiled her. The brothers ended up killing the people of the land, and it was just so, so horrible, the whole thing that happened. Okay, it could have been avoided if Dina hadn't gone out to associate with the women of that land. Probably she wouldn't have been defiled, she wouldn't have been raped, and the needless death would not have happened. So that's one of it, and you can get stories from the details from Genesis chapter 1 verses 1 to 30. Like I said, that relationship was destructive. Okay, that's another one. The next is Judah and his Canaanite wife. So Judah left his brothers. Judah left his brothers and decided to associate himself with a certain friend that he had. Okay, a certain friend that he had. And we're told that at that point in time, he at that point in time he pardon me, I'm trying to sort some things out here. But please confirm that you can see me and hear me if you're still on the stream, just so I'm sure that it's going through. Okay, so we're told that Judah left his brothers and decided to left where his brothers were, and then he went to another city and was associated with a certain man. It's all in my book, Journey to Enthronement. You can get details from there. Okay, and Genesis chapter 38 again captures this, verses 1 to 2, and then chapter 9 to 10, and all of that. So he separated himself from his brothers and he said to marry a Canaanite woman. Now we're told that he married the Canaanite woman. We're not told her name. He married the Canaanite woman, and then she bore him 3 sons. She bore him 3 sons. But the Bible recorded that the sons did wickedly in the sight of God, the first son and the second son, except the third. And so we're told that God killed them. God killed them, the first and the second son. God killed them. But the tradition back then was that if a man was married and he died, he was supposed to be the younger brother was responsible for the wife. So when the first son died, he decided that the wife of the first son was now going to be the second son was now going to be responsible for the wife of the first son. But we're told that it was a little, it was just a mess. And we're told that he also did wickedly in the sight of God. You can go and read the story. I don't want to go through the details now, but he also did wickedly in the sight of God, and we're told that God also killed him. Now Judah was meant to give the same wife to the third son, because that was the tradition back then. But probably he felt that her name was Tamar, I think Tamar. So probably he felt that she was responsible for the death of the sons, and decided that he wasn't going to give her to his third son. And so he deceived her that he was going to give her to his third son, but he never did. So for some reason, he deceived her and all of that, and she felt slighted in that sense that this is tradition. You're supposed to give me to your third son. Okay. Very funny. No, well, not funny in that sense, but you understand what I'm trying to say. And then we're told that because of what he did, excuse me, pardon me, my son, can you go and wait for me? Give me a minute. Wait for me. Okay, I'll be with you shortly. Okay, so what he did was he deceived her. He deceived Tamar, and then Tamar decided that she was going to get back to him. So he had left that vicinity and traveled to another city, and he was trying to have intimate relationships with a prostitute in that sense. A prostitute in that sense, right? And she deceived him. So what she did was she there was this costume she put on, pretended, covered herself up so he couldn't recognize her, pretended as if she was a prostitute, and then he went and lay with her. But what she did was that she kept his staff, okay, as evidence, because of course she knew that much later they would want to find out who got her, who impregnated her, and you'll probably say that she's a whore, she did it, but so she kept his stuff as evidence. Okay. And then by the time they discovered that she was pregnant, they started asking questions like, how did you get pregnant and everything? And she was like, the person that owns this stuff is the one that impregnated me. And at that point in time, because Judah was so furious, he was like, who got you pregnant and everything? And then she told them that the owner of this stuff is the person that is responsible for this pregnancy. And at that point, when Judah realized that he had, because the next day, let me go back a little, piggyback. The next day, after he had had the intimate relationship with her, he came back the next day trying to pay her, got to the spot where he picked her up, and he said he didn't find her there. Of course, she had achieved her mission. And then he started asking questions that he saw a lady here that was a prostitute, and there was like, no prostitute stays here. And so because he didn't find her, he left, but she had already picked his stuff. And so by the time he realized that, okay, she was the prostitute that he took at that point in time, then he said he realized that he had done her wrong, and he decided that she was vindicated for what she did. She was vindicated for what she did. So give me a second. Go and wait for me. Okay. So I can see some questions. Fatima, what's your name? Okay, my name is Elizabeth. I said that in the beginning. Elizabeth Omoworare. Okay, so where was I? So his family was literally destroyed because his sons died. The Bible also recorded that his wife, his Canaanite wife, also died later on, right? And then the daughter-in-law later was able to, she gave birth to a child, like the fruit of that intimate relationship with Judah. But he was in the wrong environment and he literally lost everything. That's the point I'm driving at. He literally lost everything. Why did he leave where he was? Okay, to go to another city and associate himself with Canaanites, got married, and then the sons died. The sons did wickedly. It was just a mess, right? So that's wrong associations again. Wrong associations again. So the next story I'm exploring here is Ruth and Boaz. So you know the story of Naomi, right? Naomi was married to a Moabite. Okay, so he left where he was and went to Moab, got married, had two sons who later got married as well, Ruth and Oprah. But we are told that they died. The sons died. Naomi's husband also died. So it was literally as though Naomi lost everything. And then she decided that she was going to go back to where she came from. And then Oprah and Ruth, who were her daughters-in-law, right? They decided that they were going to go with her because they didn't have anything left there again. So she told them that they can't go with her because she has lost everything. She doesn't have anybody to give to them. There's nobody there that they'll get married to and all of that. But they insisted that they were going to stick with her. So she told them to go back. Oprah went back, but Ruth didn't. And that was when Ruth said that your people will be my people, your God will be my God, and all that. And she stuck with Naomi. Now, the point I'm getting to is that Ruth was discerning. For some reason, she just knew that something was going to show up if she followed Naomi. So the power of the right association, that was a liberation, a restoration for Ruth and Naomi, because by the time they went back, they left Moab and went back, they later um she later got married to Boaz, right? And then there was she later got married to Boaz, and they had Obed, who was now the father of JC, the father of David, then Solomon, then Jacob, then Joseph, and Jesus. So you can read through the genealogy there. That can be found in Matthew chapter 1. So that was a right association, and Ruth was discerning. So she knew when to leave, when to move, when to stick with Naomi at that point in time. Okay. The next is Abigail and Nabal. Abigail and Nabal. Abigail and Nabal. Abigail and Nabal. Please confirm that you can see me. Okay. Yeah, Abigail and Nabal. So Abigail was a very wise woman, but how did she end up with Nabal? Because the Bible recorded that he was a foolish man in that sense. How did she end up with Nabal? Recall that David and his men had helped him to share his sheep, and by the time they came asking for some sort of reward, he was angry and furious. He was like, he didn't send them. Why are they sharing his sheep and all of that? And Abigail and David decided that he was going to destroy the family of Nabal, like he was going to kill all of them. So he was planning to shed needless blood, right? And then Abigail got wind of this. Her servants told her that this was what her husband Nabal did, and this was what David was planning to do. And then she put together, you know, they baked bread, they did put together all sorts of things, and then the servants went ahead and then she prepared herself and met David while he was coming to destroy them. So if she hadn't done that, she would have been destroyed, she would have been killed, literally, because David was coming to kill Nabal, to kill her and the entire family. That was what happened. But she went ahead, she got wind of what David was planning to do. And so she went ahead, sent her servants with the things that David had requested for. And then as soon as from afar, before she got to where David was, she knelt down and sort of tried to advise him that he should not shed needless blood, that her husband is not a wise man. So why does he want blood on his hands? So that was a very smart move, and that was how she was able to save herself, right? And we discovered that the next day, that by the time she got back, neighbor was busy having a party. So she waited until he had finished, and then the next day she told him what was about to happen. And we're told that he fell into a coma, so to speak, and that was how God killed him. And afterwards, David married Abigail. So the question is, Abigail was very smart, intelligent, and wise, because if she wasn't good to her servants, he would not have done that, like informed her about what her husband did, even though she wasn't there. So how did she end up with Nabal? That's the question I want you to go with today. How did such an intelligent woman end up with Nabal? But then she was able to, after the whole thing that happened, David asked her to marry him, and of course she said yes. So that was another story of restoration. The next is, I'm rounding up, okay? The next is Deborah and Lapidot. So details of that can be found in Judges chapter 4, right? Judges chapter 4. And we're told that at that time when there were no judges in Israel, Deborah was a judge in Israel, that she was a prophetess, and she was married to Lapidot. And we know the whole story, how they did wickedly, and God had handed them over to Jabin and Sisera, and they oppressed them until God delivered them and brought some sort of restoration to them through Barak, Jael, and Deborah, while Sisera was killed. Okay, so we understand that Deborah was a judge at the time in Israel, and because of the office that she occupied, of course, the relationship and association was right. The Her husband understood her office as a prophetess, and she was able to um, judge the affairs of Israel at that point in time. She was able to judge the affairs of Israel at that point in time judiciously. She did all she was meant to do. She led them, gave them victories through the counsel that she got from God at that point in time. So that association was right. That association was right. And so again, associations, right? The redemption of a race. So Deborah's relationship with her husband wasn't just meant for them, because now she was a judge and they were able to together. She was able to relate with them. She was like the middle person between her, the Israelites, and God. And they were able to destroy and kill the enemies of the children of Israel. Okay, the final one will be Joseph and Mary. You know the story of Joseph and Mary. So Joseph was engaged to Mary, right? He was engaged to Mary, and we are told that the spirit came upon her, and she became pregnant. Now Mary was a virgin in that sense. So just imagine, picture it, that how can a virgin who is engaged, preparing to get married, be pregnant? The kind of shame that she would have been dealing with at that point in time, I can't even imagine it. And so Joseph, being a nobleman, decided that he was going to lay her off secretly. He didn't want to really expose her in that sense, but of course he wasn't ready to settle with the fact that she was pregnant and he had not been intimate with her. Okay, and then God intervened, because that relationship was not ordinary. It was orchestrated by God. And so an angel appeared to Joseph and told him that the plan he has to secretly lay Mary off should be discarded. And Joseph had to really obey and listen to the angel, because he had explained everything to Joseph. And that was how Joseph was able to take care of Mary until Jesus was born, and then he raised Jesus as well. So that association was right. It was a divine orchestration. God had chosen Mary and he had chosen Joseph. So associations are really powerful. Now, if you're a single in waiting, what kind of associations do you belong to? What kind of circles are you a part of? Who are you relating with? Do you understand the consecration that you must, embody to really step into the will of God for your life? I'm trying to set this up. Yeah, to really step into the will of God for your life. Okay. So as I wrap this up, I'm going to read from my book, Journey to Enthronement, like I said, for singles in their waiting season. It's on, the chapter is on boundaries. I think it's boundaries. Let me just double check that. Yes, chapter 5 on boundaries. And I talked about boundaries from Harry Cloud's book on, let me just go there quickly. Dr. Harry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend's book on boundaries, when to say yes and how to say no to take control of your life. Okay. And so he said that there are certain things that should make up your boundaries, your fence of defense as a means of protection, your love, your deepest capacity to connect and trust, your emotions, the need to own your feelings and not be controlled by someone else's feelings, your values, the need to have your life reflect what you care about most deeply, your behaviors, the control over how you act in your dating relationship, your attitudes, your stances and opinions about yourself and your date. So boundary problems show up through loss of freedom for yourself, being with the wrong person, dating from inner hurt rather than your values, not dating at all, doing too much in the relationship, freedom without responsibility, control issues, not taking the responsibility to say no, and sexual impropriety. So you can go and get the book for yourself, to really read through. I also spoke about some of these relationships that I discussed here in the book. Wrong associations, they really matter. They really matter. So you have to take this seriously. Okay. We're talking about complexities of contemporary relationships. So examine today, when you go back today, sort of do some sort of expose on these relationships that I listed: Samson and Delilah, Joseph and Mary, Dina and the Shechemites, Judah and his Canaanite wife, Ruth and Boaz, Abigail and Nabal, Deborah and Lapidot, to sort of understand, draw lessons from it yourself, and see how it merges with, how, if there are similarities with the relationships you are in currently, or maybe relationships you're about to go into, and really extract wisdom from all of it. Fine, the context might be different, definitely, because we're all different, but there's still wisdom that you can extract for your life. So I hope this has been helpful. If you didn't watch the first installment last week, Complexities of Contemporary Relationships, you can go to my handle and you find it there, right? That's the first installment. And if you're a single in waiting, you can join the Pearls and Gemstones tribe. Again, you see details on how to join us in the description. I don't see any questions. Do you have any questions for me today? I don't see any questions. Do you have any questions? If you have any questions, this is getting longer than I intended, but I'm done already. I'm wrapping up. If you have any questions, please drop them in the chats for me briefly so I can take it. I see that Fatima asks what's my name. My name is Elizabeth. You can see it on my handle as well. Okay, so thank you all for joining me today. I hope this has been beneficial to you. Watch out for the next installment. And this is a curriculum that I'm running in singles network, right? Pearls and Gemstones. I just decided to make it open for as many singles out there that would need the wisdom being shared. Okay, thank you for joining me today. I'm Elizabeth Omoworare. I wish you a lovely evening. Bye bye. I told you people